Time to do the JP poll. This has nothing in common with the AP. It has nothing in common with the playoff committee. This is not how I would fill out a playoff ballot if I were a committee member. These are power ratings, and these are how I would stack these teams up according to our model on a neutral field tomorrow. It's been proven right literally over and over and over again this year, and the fan bases who thought they were being screwed and called me all kinds of names instead of admitting that I was right have just disappeared. There are a couple of exceptions. We have been wrong on Washington the whole year. There is an adjustment in tonight's JP poll, so let's break it down. I am so happy. In fact, it thrills me to announce that Troy University has made an appearance in the JP poll. John Sumrall and his staff are doing insane work down at Troy. They are number 25 this week, and they are challenging for a conference championship. His name is in the running for some major head coaching jobs. Just not even a golf clap, just an outright clap for John Sumrall and Troy. They're number 25. Florida's at 24. Tennessee did not drop out. Tennessee's at 23. Utah is at 22. I have concerns about Utah, as I do with a few of these teams, because this time of year, if you ran out of gas, there's no fill-in station between weeks 12 and 13. If you ran out of gas, you're just out. But there's no real way to quantify that. So Utah could put forth an effort this Saturday that is equal to what we would expect from the 45th best team in the country. But we have to bake their entire year's profile in. So right now they're at 22. UCLA's at 21. Just beat USC last week. I got a stat for you here, by the way. So, Colin, you can go ahead to 20 through 15. But listen to this. So if you want to know about gaps, so the model right now has 10 points that separate number 1 through number 6. The number 1 team would be a 10-point favorite, in other words, versus the number 6 team. But listen to how tightly packed the rest of the field is. The gap between 1 and 6 is 10 points. The gap between 10 and 32 is 10 points. So it's a moot point to argue this stuff. Like if you think, A&M shouldn't be 18, they should be 23rd. There's like 3/4 of a point separation. There's no difference. It's splitting hairs. Having said that, we got Ole Miss at 20, Louisville at 19. A&M we've had pegged right here in the same spot for weeks now. Clemson as well. The model did not punt on Clemson when they started losing because they were properly rated. And now they've won 3 straight, and they're right there at 17. That's exactly where Clemson should be. Oregon State's at 16. Didn't drop them a whole lot because they played the exact game that we thought they should play, absent turnover margin last week. And turnovers are randomized, and we do not bake them into the model. The model actually, this will really, really be loved up in Seattle. For the model's predictive purposes, do you realize it saw Oregon State beat Washington by about 4 or 5 points last week? Because it always eliminates turnovers, and it otherwise plays the game out the way the game would play out. And the reason it does that is because we have learned over the course of football history, if turnovers are randomized and you want a future-looking model and a predictive model, it is wiser to just eliminate all the turnovers and then crunch the numbers. How would the game have played out without them? Mathematically, it's an Oregon State win. That's why they didn't really drop at all. I think a couple of teams jumped ahead of them, and that was the only reason they dropped down a spot, because we didn't subtract anything off of their power rating. I'm telling you right now, someone is punching air who doesn't get what I just said. Like, what do you mean you eliminated turnovers? That's not how football works. True. That is how power ratings work, though. Let's go 15 through 11. Number 15, and I need to talk to you about this team, is Arizona. Arizona, it stuns me that they're here. Every week stuns me that they're here. Unbelievable job by Jed Fish. Florida State's at 14, so let's pause for a second. So you see now what I was talking about earlier. Without Jordan Travis, I mean, that's a solid 6 to 7 point deduction on your power rating when you lose your quarterback who is of that caliber. So we've got Florida State at 14 without Jordan Travis. I cannot overemphasize enough. That team being at 14 has no bearing on whether I think they should or shouldn't be in the playoff if they go undefeated. This thing right here is totally different. It's not merit-based. This is just power rating. Missouri's at 13, really solid year being put up by Eli Drinkwitz. Penn State's at 12, Oklahoma's at 11, pretty much where they were last week. Top 10 time. So Kansas State's still right there. Notre Dame as well. Those are very solid teams, but look at Washington. This could be the highest we've had Washington. There may have been one other week, but I think this is close to the highest we've had Washington. They're at number 8. And I'll tell you what I did. I stepped in, and I realized I think we've had them a point or two off all year. Like, I think we've been ahead of the curve for a ton of these teams. But Washington, we've been behind the curve on. And so the model did not adjust them at all last week. I told you, as far as the model's purposes are concerned, Oregon State beat Washington last week for future-leaning purposes. Well, I stepped in and said, be that as it may, we continue to be a little bit off on them. So we manually adjusted Washington up just a little bit. I think we added 3/4 of a point, but that's good enough to put them at number 8. LSU is number 7. Think about that. Think about LSU with how poor their defense has been this year. They are so good offensively. They're at number 7. Like, we would favor LSU against Washington if they played tomorrow. Not by much, but we would favor them. We would favor them against Kansas State. That's amazing because it shows, in a sense, how much they've wasted Jaden Daniels this year with a poor defense. And it's a shame because you don't get seasons like that very often. Texas is number 6, virtually unchanged. And let's go top 5 here. Ohio State's at 5. That's where they were last week. Michigan, the model dropped them 2 spots and elevated Oregon above Michigan, which I'm sure will catch a lot of eyes. But do you notice who the 1-2 are now? We got Georgia, Bama, 1-2. Like so many years past, we think the 2 best teams in the country at this present moment are in the SEC. We have got a 2.5-point gap between Georgia and Alabama. We have got a 6-point gap between Georgia and Ohio State. Obviously, number 1 and number 2 are going to play. Obviously, number 4 and number 5 are going to play. My point is you may be watching the playoff unfold over the next 2 weeks. Now, Oregon sits there and says, excuse me, and that is a valid rebuttal because maybe we're not. But you're not going to see all those teams in the top 4, and the reason may just be because they have to play each other, is my point. Let's get back on well, first off, let me show you the top 10 there. So there you see it. If you want your screen grab to send to your cousin who you can just aggravate because you don't explain the context to him, yeah, there it is. All of a sudden, LSU is ahead of Washington. 3 losses ahead of an undefeated. What's wrong with this guy? Someone accused me of doing drugs earlier today. And that's where I draw the line. So there you go. There's your top 10.